Hey, happy Monday morning. Jill Murphy here from the Food Freedom Body Love Method. And we're going to be talking about why you don't need to get your body back after you have a baby today. And I just want to say that Pam Fontes of Limitless Living and I, if you are in Kingston, we're going to be at the Baby Bump and Beyond exhibition on Saturday, November 4th. And we're going to be talking about this in more detail. So I'm just sort of like getting the conversation started. Going to talk about mom bods and the realities of what happens after we have a baby and how we handle it. And if you have questions, I sort of like to get going through the information, but if you're watching and you have questions or comments, feel free to just leave them below. And then sort of near the end, I'll take a scroll through and see where we're at. And if people have questions or comments or whatever, and I can talk about it. So like I said, I'm Jill Murphy. I'm a naturopath. I'm an emotional eating and body image coach. And I try to do these videos every Monday at noon. So today we're talking about mom bods. Next week, I am going to start a holiday series that I'm super excited about. I know it's a bit early, but the holiday season is upon us and everything that comes with it, from food to body stuff to family stuff. And so I'm going to be tackling that every Monday. So Monday here. I'm also going to leave a link for the newsletter so you can have those things emailed to you directly if you prefer. Okay, so getting going. For most of you who followed me for a little while, you know that my history sort of with food and body and how I ended up doing this work with women is that I have a history of orthorexia, which is essentially, I had it in my very early 20s. There wasn't really a name for it at the time. We understand it better now. But it's an obsession with clean eating and really, compulsively exercising for health. Though to anyone who was around me or outside of me, it was pretty clear that it wasn't healthy or good for me in any way, shape, or form. But there wasn't really a definition for it at the time. And so I spent the majority of my 20s working my way out of that, any help I could get. Mostly it was coming from books, to be quite honest. And it was a struggle. And I did a pretty good job of working my way out and developing a vocabulary for the problems that I saw in the wellness industry. But it was challenging. And I, being someone that, even though I no longer wanted to be restricting and in diet mentality, and I was working really hard to be intuitive, I was still in a straight-sized body, right? I was still in a smaller body. And so it was difficult from that perspective to fully understand, what diet mentality is and why we stay stuck in it. And so it's interesting to think about the fact that my body changed through having 2 children, and the gift of that transformation is that I was actually able to dig in and really finish this work. My body changing through my pregnancies is the thing that pushed me to fully understand what is going on with women when we're struggling with food in our bodies, and has allowed me to do the really deep work that I do with women one-on-one. So it's actually a huge gift in a way, although I would never have thought that while I was going through it. And I certainly fought it for several years after having babies. So, that's my history. Essentially, I had the first baby and my body actually bounced back pretty easily, I would say, in the grand scheme of things. But after the second baby, my body was like, no, not having it. My body was transformed. It was changed. It was different. And I spent about 2 years really actively fighting it. And it didn't feel like it was so horrible at the time, but I was, increasingly exercising more and more and more, to the point where I was actually exercising twice a day to try and get my body back. And I was restricting more and more and more. And again, in the beginning, it didn't feel like that big of a deal, but I started to see myself going back down that spiral that I had been in my early 20s. And I pretty quickly realized that this, working from this position of body hate and control and negativity was not the direction I wanted to be going in. It was pulling me back down a really super negative hole that I didn't want to be in. And it didn't feel like health to me. And I thought, what is the point? Why am I going back down the spiral? So I did some deep work and I really dug into what was going on for me at the time, figured things out. And again, that's been the foundation of the work that I do with women. So today, what we're talking about, I'm just going to get my glasses on so I can see some of the notes that I made and follow along. You know, what this process really is about, I believe what this process is really about after we have a baby is realizing that our lives have changed. You know, when we become a mom, we've gone through this really huge transformative process of being pregnant, getting pregnant, however easy or difficult that is, growing a baby, however easy or difficult that might be for us, giving birth to a baby, and again, the variety of experiences that women have through the birth process, from pure joy to trauma, is incredible. And then we go through this really varied experience of recovering after we have a baby and potentially feeding that baby or not. And what that whole process looks like is really different for every woman. And then we get to the end of it and our bodies are different. And the reality is that our whole lives are different. And it's not unusual or it's not uncommon for our bodies to be really different. And yet most women resist that. They understand that their life is entirely different, but they just want their body to go back to where it was. And so a huge part of this process is understanding that you don't need to get your body back because your body's never left. Your body has been with you through that whole transformative, incredible process. And she's right there. She's right there beside you. She looks a little different. She's potentially a little bit unknown to you, maybe a little bit uncomfortable, but she's never left you. She's always been there. And so then the question becomes, you know, who am I in this new body? I have this new life. I have this new body, and all of it feels a little bit uncomfortable, and I don't know what to do. And you know, the easy route, or not the easy route because it's challenging, but the most known route is to go down the diet hole, right? To start restricting your food and over-exercising yourself and pushing yourself to really unnatural places in order to make your body do what you want it to do. But the tough reality for a lot of women is that our bodies just don't want to go back. Our bodies don't want to change. And again, I'm generalizing a little bit here, right? Because there are plenty of women, right, across the spectrum. There are all different experiences where there are women who don't have to work very hard and their bodies actually do go back. Like, that's a reality. There are some women where that process is fairly simple. There are women who work incredibly hard and who are potentially happy to, and they manage to work their bodies back to where they were before. And again, if they're happy to do that and keep doing that, that's a possibility. But I'm talking more, you know, this video is more directed at women who are working incredibly hard to get their body back and their bodies just don't want to do it. Or who can't seem to muster up the energy even to start trying to force their body back to where it was before. You know, it's just kind of like, woo. So this is really more for women who are in that place where they are recognizing that there's a block somewhere with their body and their body is not interested in going back to where it was before. So, you know, like I said, a big part of this process is just realizing that our lives are different, right? So many women that I work with one-on-one, you know, when we talk about where they wish they were with their body, they'll say, oh, I just wish, you know, they remember a different time in their life. It's like, they remember back to when they were in university or when they were in grad school or the summer before they started their first job, right? And they're like, I just wish my body could be like it was at that time, you know, like I was moving my body every day and I was eating a certain way and I felt a certain way. And I just wish I could go back there. And so again, they try to access that old life or that old feeling that they had in their old life by working towards making their body go back to the way their body was at that time. But it's a futile effort because the reality is your life is totally different than it was back then, and your body is totally different. And trying to force either of those things to go back to the way they were is ridiculous, right? You're in a new life. I don't know about you, but I remember back in university or when I was doing naturopathic medicine, and it felt like my time was so tight, you know, but when I think back to it now, it's almost laughable, right? How much free time I had, how much, I had no dependence. I had no one else to worry about. I could exercise at any time of the day that I wanted to. I could eat whenever I wanted to and whatever I wanted to. And that's just not the reality of my life anymore, right? My life is filled with children and obligations and work, and, so many minutes of the day are full, and trying to force my body back to the way that it was before is as futile as trying to force my life back to the way that it was before, right? And so what this whole thing is really about is about allowing a transformation process to happen, and instead of fighting it and resisting it and trying to get back to the way things were, starting to accept the way that they are right now, right? And the other thing I would say that I really notice when I talk with women about their bodies through, sort of pregnancy and postpartum, I think that there's, like I said, there's so much that we can learn from this, right? And one of the things that often comes up is women will talk about, and again, I'm generalizing because I know that not all women love being pregnant and not all women love the way that their bodies look or feel throughout pregnancy, but there is a group of women who will talk about the fact that when they're pregnant, they love their body, right? It's like possibly for the first time in their whole life, they are 100% comfortable in their body. They feel amazing. They eat really well. When they indulge, they don't feel guilty about it. They feel beautiful and radiant and sexy and attractive and desirable and all these things they've wanted their whole life. And they feel it when they're pregnant. And then bam, they have a baby and they go right back to the way that they felt before, which is that their body isn't measuring up and it's not good enough. And, they can't let it go and they've got to get it back together. And they go right back into that spiral of sort of like negative thoughts and behaviors. And so I think that there's like a little bit of magic here. Like I think that there's something really special we can learn from this, from women who allow pregnancy to be the permission that they need to just accept their body and surrender into what their body is going to do, right? Because that's essentially what's happening. It's like women are able to give themselves permission to say, there's this magical biological process happening in my body right now, and I'm not totally in control, but I'm going to love it and I'm going to go with it. And whatever happens to my body, I'm just going to love it the whole way through. And when they do that, they start to see the way that approach to their body trickles into their relationship with food and their relationship with how beautiful and desirable they feel. What most women don't realize is that after they have the baby, when they cut that permission off and instead of surrendering into what their body's going to do and accepting it and going with it, they feel like they've got to get back in control. And they don't recognize the negative thoughts and behavior patterns that start to play out the moment they try to get back in control again, right? And so the big lesson here, I think, is step one to this process is accepting that our bodies have gone through a major transformation. They've done this incredible transformative work of getting pregnant, growing a baby, birthing a baby, potentially feeding a baby, and recovering from that birth. And there's also going to be this biological process that you're not totally in control of that is the recovering of your body post-baby, right? And the more that we can relax into that, the more that we can accept body diversity as a biological fact and that not all women's bodies are going to recover the same way, the more we can stay in that place of surrender and awe and admiration for what our body's doing instead of reverting into these old patterns of like, I need to be in control. Oh, some people are joining. Hi, Jess. Hi, two Jesses. Right? So understanding, being willing to readily accept and enjoy your body regardless of how she recovers from birth is a really important step in this process, right? And it really just does go back to the title of this whole thing, which is like, you don't need to get your body back because she's always been there, right? Like as long as you are alive, your physical body has always been with you. She has been beside you. She has been carrying you through the whole process, through life, allowing you to experience the world. Your body is holding up her end of the bargain, regardless of how much it weighs or what shape it is. Your body's holding up her end of the bargain. Are you, right? Because what's your end of the bargain in this transformative process? It's learning how to be in a body that feels different and foreign and uncomfortable in a new way. And instead of trying to fight and resist the change that's happening in your life as a whole and in your body, easing into new ways of being in your body is really what the goal is. She's never left you. She's right there. She's carrying you through the world. She's doing everything in her power to allow you to experience life to the fullest. So what is it that you need to learn in order to continue to be in awe and to surrender and to accept that your body is different from other women's bodies and it's recovering in different ways? What is it that you need to do? You may need to learn how to feed yourself differently. You may need to learn how to move differently, how to dress differently. And, when I talk about this, I never want to diminish how much exercise and food can help us recover and help us feel energetic and, help us feel more like ourselves. But exercise and food and supplements, they can support our health, but they're not going to guarantee that our body's going to go back to the same weight and shape that it was before. Your body's been through a transformative, incredible process, and it has transformed. And there's no objective reason why there's anything wrong with that, right? There is no reason except for the fact that we live in a culture that wants us to make us believe that our bodies are not biologically different and that our bodies all should recover from pregnancy in the same way. And it's just ridiculous, right? Our bodies get pregnant differently, our bodies grow babies differently, our bodies birth differently, and we recover differently. Believing that all women's bodies should recover in the same way and should respond to birth in the same way is like, believing that all of our babies should sleep through the night at the same time, or that they should all feed the same way or poop the same way, right? Like, it's just ridiculous. We are biologically different and we respond to biological processes differently. And so the goal here is not to get your body back. It's to surrender into the body that you have and learn how to live and take care of and be in the new body. And in the same way that your life is totally different and it might feel uncomfortable or foreign or strange, your body might feel that way. But that's not a sign that there's anything wrong. It's just a sign that you're doing something new, that you're in a new place, right? And again, I don't want to, there's definitely some health things that can pop up after birth. And if you feel like there's something actually like really wrong biologically with you, then I would never encourage you to not go get that checked, right? Like sometimes hormones don't bounce back. And sometimes, we do develop thyroid issues or, we don't recover or heal properly. Our moods might be really off. And that's stuff that you all want to look into. But again, as someone who really when my post-baby body was not the same as it was before I had a baby, I took that to mean, even after all the work that I'd done, even after thinking I had worked my way out of diet mentality for a long time, I understood my body being different than it was before I had the second baby to equal there was something wrong in my body. And that is not necessarily true, right? I did the exercise, I changed up my food, I cleaned everything up, I did hormone work, I literally did bioidentical hormones, I did supplementation, I fixed my adrenals, I got my sleep under control, and guess what? My body felt better, but my body was still different. That's just the fact, right? Like, your body being a different weight and shape does not equal a problem. That's the major thing that I sort of want to get across in this video. And that the work is not to try to force or stuff your body back into the shape that she was before, but instead to relax into this new body and to start to learn how to take care of this new body that has never left your side, never left you physically for a second, from a loving perspective. Shame and guilt and embarrassment have never been particularly helpful. It's never been a particularly great strategy for making positive change in your life, I'm sure, right? So how do we learn to take care of these new bodies from a loving perspective? How do we start to recognize the biological diversity that is a fact when it comes to our bodies? And how do we start to surrender and appreciate where we're at, again, from a really loving perspective? So that's the beginning of the conversation. On Saturday, November 4th, at the Bump Baby and Beyond exhibition here in Kingston, I'm going to be going deeper into this, going deeper really into that exploration of, how do we start to feel like ourselves again after we have a baby? And what does that look like if we're not just trying to manipulate our weight, right? What else could be involved there? So talking about that on Saturday. And again, next Monday, I'm going to start a holiday series talking about all things food, intuitive eating, emotional eating, body image, eating patterns around families, all that stuff as we navigate our way through the holiday season. And last thing before I go, I'm going to put a link so that you can sign up for the newsletter list. So if you're not on it already, you can start to get these videos instead of, I love when people show up live. It's great. You can ask questions. We can interact a little bit. But if you can't make it, you can have them delivered right to you. So thanks for being here, and I'll see you next Monday.